What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Bears show. I'm Ivan Vargas. Post Super Bowl special, but I'll also be sprinkling in, of course, our Chicago Bears. But definitely talking about that Super Bowl yesterday, finishing up on that and what I thought of the 2021 season. We all know how it went for the Bears. We all know how it went yesterday. But before we get started, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to Sports Zone Chicago on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Make sure you go ahead and like another Bear Show on YouTube as well. Download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps from. The Super Bowl, Rams win 23-20 over the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, to be honest with you, you got to give them some credit. It was a good game, but there was just a lot to be said, a lot to be left on the field, a lot of questionable calls on both sides. You had an injury to Odell Beckham for the Rams. The Rams offense looked pretty much suspect up until that last drive. They really didn't hit in any big plays after Odell left. You know, they have Cooper Kupp, but they targeted Cooper Kupp about 8 times on that last drive. I mean, rightfully so. He's your best player. But it was just like, you had these two offenses that just were okay. They weren't great. Joe Burrow played really well, but when push came to shove, the Bengals offense couldn't get it done. The defense was doing all they could, and I felt was backed into a corner. They were doing all, they couldn't hold, even taking on the burden of having to deal with penalties there at the end. They just couldn't hold the Rams, and it is what it is. I very vocal yesterday, very vocal about how I felt about the end of it, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because it wasn't all the officiating, but it was spotty officiating, right? Spotty officiating, inconsistent officiating, stuff that you don't want in your Super Bowl, right? Stuff that you don't want to see during the Super Bowl, things that occurred during the season. Plays that were just like, oh, what are we doing here? What are we calling? How do you even define that? Or how are you even trying to define it live, right? How are you trying to see it live? Even if we went to a replay, it's not like they could go ahead and turn it over. You know what I'm saying? There's just this gray area of what is certain penalties, right? And then on top of that, you go to the missed calls, and there was missed calls on both sides. It wasn't that I was rooting for the Bengals, but they're not the Bears, right? So my heart's not going to be fucking broken. My heart's not broken today. But you have a game, you have this game, you have the Bengals, and honestly, it was more or less like you kind of saw what you were at the end. Like your problems reared their ugly head at the wrong moments. And I'm talking about their offensive line and such. But the play calling, the bad officiating, the bad flags that were thrown, the one on T. Higgins, and I'm watching it right now as I speak about it. The one on T. Higgins that wasn't called blatant, but the one before with the Bengals in the red zone. You look at Jalen Ramsey and you see how far he pulled that shirt and it propelled him forward. It's clear, right? He gets that extra push once he pulled that jersey and pulled, I believe it was T. Higgins again on the play, the intended receiver on the play. No call. You had Chris Collinsworth, his goofy ass, talking about it was a clean play. I'm like, Chris, we saw it live and it didn't look clean. You get the benefit of this slow-mo instant replay instantly, probably faster than we get it. And you're still you still can't decipher that. You still can't see that he pulled his jersey. What side of the field are you on? You know what I mean? Like, where are you watching this from? Chris Collinsworth's killing me yesterday. But going back to the to that, let's go ahead. Going back to the game. Let's get to the beginning of it. Let's start with the beginning because I know everybody wants to talk about the end. Starting off, it was real slow. We were just trying, I guess, feeling each other out. Then you had that strike from the Rams, Odell Beckham. I felt bad for him. I really did feel bad for Odell Beckham because the start of that game, it was all Odell. Like, I was like, damn, Odell's going to be the MVP. Odell Beckham will be the MVP if he stays healthy. And I saw it like there's a lot of criticism that goes towards Odell Beckham. There's a lot of people that don't like him. A lot of his antics have pissed people off, right? Maybe his attitude. I don't know what happened in Cleveland. It seemed like there was a mutual parting or mutual decision in Cleveland, but who knows with who knows what goes on in the locker room 100%. I mean, you didn't really hear he was a nuisance. You know what I mean? It just, they weren't on the same page. But seeing him go down, you felt bad for him. You really did. I felt like Odell should have been out on the field. It would have made for a better game if Odell was out on the football field. The way he was playing, like I said, to start the game, he was wide open. You're worried about Cooper Kupp. You want to double Cooper Kupp, or you want to keep it and just kind of make sure you focus on Cooper because he is the best receiver right now, at least this year in the game. You got Odell wide open, and Odell was just kicking ass. Like, he was just doing what he does. You know what I'm saying? He had 59 yards before he blew his knee out. I think it's his ACL. I think it was the same knee they repaired. He said that somebody had sent me a text saying that it was the same knee that he injured prior. But the start of the game for the Rams, they go up 7-3, and like I said, the Rams kicked that field goal. And what could have been, you know what I mean? What could have been if that penalty was called? That's why I said it was just inconsistent. I don't know how to feel about the outcome. And I know I said a lot of crazy shit, but I feel that way. There's no way to argue the fixed question, right? There's no way to argue, I guess, honestly solidly, why those play calls weren't, I guess, why they weren't consistent enough, right? Why they weren't consistent enough. Is it because you mismatch, referees? You go ahead and you take guys from different teams and you put them on as like this super referee team, and you throw them in there in the Super Bowl, and I don't know, maybe there's a disconnect there. But I just feel like, you're calling it one way, and it wasn't like there was penalties all over the field all game long. They were letting them play. I mean, you had the non-call against Ramsey. You had the non-call against T. Higgins. And I know the T. Higgins play is a lot bigger than that, than the Ramsey play, I guess. I don't know if it's bigger, because who's to say the Bengals don't go ahead and after picking up the first down on what would have been a penalty, a holding penalty, they don't go ahead and punch it in. Right? The Rams just got, the Bengals moved it pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden the drive stalls and they kick a field goal. What if that drive continued? Don't you think the momentum would be on the Bengals side? Don't you think that the percentage of the Bengals pushing that into the end zone would be a little bit, it was prime for them to do that, I felt like. They didn't get the job done. You can't rely on the referees. But then why is it that you can't decipher which is, and I'll get back to that personal foul, the helmet to helmet. I'll get to the personal foul later. But why can't you figure it? Like, why can't there be a definitive answer to some of these calls? Like, what were you thinking on that holding call on 55? Can he not put his hand around the hip? Is pulling it? What did you see? Active pulling? I mean, was he grabbing the jersey? Was he hooking that hip around? I don't think so. But like I said on Sean and Maya earlier today, the only penalty that was not egregious on that last drive was the one on Eli Apple. And Eli Apple has been getting ripped on Twitter, just destroyed on Twitter. But I mean, that's his own doing. When you want to run your mouth on social media, on these podcasts or whatever, sometimes shit comes back to haunt you. You know what I mean? Like you gotta be able to understand that, and I think he does. I mean, he's a big boy, right? But that was the only one. Eli Apple didn't have a particularly good game. That was the only one on that last drive I thought was legit. I didn't see the hold. I was too pissed off about the personal foul. I did not see the hold. I don't even think they showed the actual replay of the hold. I might be mistaken on that personal foul on Bell. And the personal foul on Bell, what do we want the guy to do? What do we want the guy to do? Right? He's got to make a play on the ball. It's the fucking Super Bowl. Wide receiver is open in the end zone. What was he supposed to do? He didn't lunge. Cooper Kupp's in the air. And he just continued on his path, I felt he just continued on his path towards the middle of the body. Cooper Kupp goes up in the air, comes back down, brings his helmet right down on the ground. And he even sat there. You had guys afterwards scuffling, and he's like, dude, I didn't come on, man. Like, what the fuck do you want me to do? Right? And I understand where he's coming from. I do. What do you want the defender to do? He wasn't lunging. He has to make a play on the ball. It's the Super Bowl. This is probably the final drive. What would you want him to do? I just felt like they were willing to throw anything. They were looking for anything to go on at that moment to throw the flag. And helmet to helmet it was, but who really initiated the contact, right? Who really initiated? How did that helmet really get to Bell? How did the helmets meet? Cooper Kupp coming down. Bell's running forward. How the hell is he supposed to stop himself? He's trying to make a play on the receiver, on the ball, trying to hit it out. There was only one play to be made. Armando, I don't think Wilson impeded him. No, Wilson didn't. He didn't impede him at all. He made a great play on a great wide receiver, a linebacker like that, making a play like that on Cooper Kupp in coverage. I thought it was fantastic. Gets tainted by a flag. I just wanted consistency, a little more consistency with the refereeing. I'm going to get off of them right now. But, Cincinnati's play calling at the end of the game, they just didn't get it done. They punted the ball. What was on the last 4 drives? They just couldn't get into the end zone after they went up. After they went up 20-13, it's just like they couldn't figure it out. It's like their offensive line tired out. Whatever they were running wasn't working. Joe Mixon had 70-something yards, but when it mattered the most, the offensive line couldn't get it done. And their offensive line is part of the reason why, it's going to be one of my points later about what the Bears should take from all this. Because when it got to that point, and I gave this example on Sean and Maya. I've given this example on here. What happened at the end of the ball game? A good pass rush, a good defense, which you're going to face not only in the regular season, when you catch some of these better teams, but if you make it to the playoffs, you're going to face teams with good pass rushes. You're going to face that. If you get to the Super Bowl, you're more than likely you're going to face a team with at least one or two have to be good pass rushers. Cincinnati on that last drive. It was I felt like it should have been a pass on third down. Forgive me. It was going to be two downs anyway. I felt like you could have play action that third down, possibly picked up a nice little gain. But my question is why Samaje Perine? Why Samaje Perine right there? And then when Joe Mixon was, it seemed to me the more Joe Mixon got touches, the more Joe Mixon started to get some gains. He started to gain yards. And I'm not knocking Samaje Perine. I mean, he's probably helped them greatly throughout the season. He was solid in their playoff run for them. But Joe Mixon at 15 carries. I don't know where 15 carries in a 131.2 passer rating with a touchdown pass to T. Higgins. But in all seriousness, 15 carries for Joe Mixon. That's it. Samaje Perine only had 2. So it wasn't like they were, trying to drain the clock. It just seemed to me like they couldn't get the job done. They couldn't do enough. They didn't have enough at the right spots. And I think that was up front. It was clearly up front. Joe Mixon had some gains, but 15 carries, you couldn't move the ball really at the end of the game. I thought it should have been Joe Mixon. Why is Samaje Perine? Two carries, 0 yards for Samaje Perine. I don't blame Joe Burrow for and then even on the fourth down, like I said, Samaje Perine again. Samaje doesn't dive for that football. Joe's getting ripped to the ground by Aaron, like a ferocious Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald smelling blood. The ball was in the air. I'm not on the field. You're not on the field, right? But the ball looked to me like you could have tried to make a play on it. At least a desperation try. No desperation in you. No last gasp hope. No reaction to that. Dive on the ground. I mean, shit, what else do you have to lose in that moment? It reminded me of Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. That fumble that just sat there and sat there and sat there until he decided to go try to make a move on it. It was what it was. Just kind of weird, right? Just kind of all right, I guess. Matt Stafford, 2 interceptions. Not a very good game for Matt Stafford. I liked that he continued to fight. He didn't look phased even after the picks. The team stuck together for the Rams, right? All the storylines, and the storylines are another one. Rashad Cool Kennedy, if you're out there, he's talking about narratives, and it just fit. You know what I mean? It's from the Rams being in the Super Bowl to being in LA, Snoop, Dre, Eminem, Kendrick, like it, them having the replica of the hood and everything like that. It just fits. You know what I'm saying? Roger Goodell, a storyline fit for Hollywood. It's just you hate it. I don't like saying that about this my favorite sport, right? I don't like saying that. And I was talking to a buddy that was here, and he's from overseas, and I was talking about soccer. I was like, dude, this is like the way people from overseas are into soccer, right? That's how I'm into football. That's how people here are into football, right? Interesting thing that he said, it's when they feel like their leagues are rigged, they could just go watch another league. You know what I mean? He's like, and Armando had mentioned it on Sean and Maya. There's no other league you could go to. The USFL will be starting up soon, so there's that. But is it going to be the XFL? Are we gonna? Is it going to be the? What was it? The Alliance? Is it going to be that? Is it going to be a joke like that? Or are you going to actually have something, a secondary product that you could market and could blossom? I like turtles too, HD. Hey, watch out for this guy if he's in a Santa suit. Don't sit on his lap. But yeah, you got to find another league. If you don't like what's going on, they could bounce to another league. And for me, I don't want to go to another league. I just want this. I want it to look like it's clean. That didn't look like it was clean yesterday. It didn't look like it was clean. Matt Stafford, rough game. You know, throws 3 touchdowns. You like the story, right? Like you like Matt Stafford. You like where he came from. He almost Detroited them, right? If Joe Burrow, for some reason or another, if the Bengals go down and they win this game, Matt Stafford doesn't look so good. He looks like the stat stuff for Matt Stafford again. Happy Valentine's Day to you too, big guy. He looks like the stat stuff for Matt Stafford again, right? Then all the narratives about Matt Stafford come up again. And they get worse tenfold. They find a way to get it done on defense. That defensive line, Aaron Donald, 2 sacks. Should have been possibly 3. You had Von Miller with 2 sacks. Leonard Floyd got in the mix. What happened, or what we thought was going to happen, happened, but it happened eventually, right? It wasn't right off the bat, right out of the gate, the Rams just dominating the Bengals up front. No, the Bengals did a pretty solid job with the Rams. I felt like they did a really good job with the Rams. Joe Burrow did a good job protecting the football. No interceptions, no fumbles for Joe. But just like I said, little things like that just freaked me out. Little things like that with the Bengals attack. The Rams attack, Jalen Ramsey was getting burnt. Jalen Ramsey was getting burnt. And like I said, he did get screwed big time. Big time out of giving up that touchdown. And like I said, it continues to go back to how bad that, like, what was going on there. We talked about that, geez. Was it that Saints Rams? Yeah, was it Saints Rams or Saints Vikings? I forget. I believe it was Saints Rams. The Saints get screwed out of a Super Bowl. Pass interference. Let me go back and look. So I'm not. But it's to that extent. That's how serious it was. Yeah, Rams. Like I thought. That's how serious it was. And then the ones that ensued, and let me go back and show you the tally. I'll tell you the tally. 2 penalties for the Rams, 2 for 10 yards. 4 penalties, 31 yards for the Cincinnati Bengals. Majority of those coming at the end of the game, wildly enough. The Rams defense they did enough. You know what I mean? The Bengals are a tough team as well. They have playmakers too. Jamar Chase had a long not a touchdown grab. He had a long reception. He had the T. Higgins. It's a touchdown. It's ruled a touchdown, but you had that. I mean, I don't know if he gets his arm around if Jalen Ramsey's going to make a play on the ball anyway. I don't know if T. Higgins would be able to make a play on the ball because he jolts his arm forward. So he pulls to get momentum, and jolt his arm forward because his arm was stuck back here. And it's kind of difficult to get your arm over without some type of momentum when your body's going that way. You got to try to. I'm not going to go ahead and look like a fool on here, but but you got to try to go ahead and get some momentum to get that arm around the body, and that's what he did by pulling the mask. That's what he did by pulling the mask, and he was able to get haul in that reception. Jalen Ramsey was falling to the ground when it happened. He wasn't in a great position. He was in between the receiver and the ball, but I still felt like T. Higgins had a play, even if he had to catch through the defender, catch around the defender. That's exactly what he did. He yanked it. But you have stuff like that, it just looks bad. It would have looked horrible for the Rams and Jalen Ramsey if that had that been the one that decided it. But it looks horrible that you had to have, I guess, makeup calls or what looked to be makeup calls at the end of the ballgame, in the most pivotal time. And yes, the Bengals had a shot, but putting the ballgame away right there was what they were banking on. Putting the ball game away right there was what they needed to do. And they just, like I said, however you want to think, however you want to take it, whatever you want to believe, the officiating affected the outcome of the game greatly. It affected the play calling of the game for the Rams. It affected the game plan for the Rams in game, during the game, like during the meat of the game, right? Suddenly the Rams are down. Suddenly they gave up a touchdown play. That offensive line that was probably beat and tired because they were shut down late in the ball game. It gives them momentum. It would give them momentum. First of all, all they would have to do is pretty much run out the clock. But it would have gave them momentum to do so. Maybe you pick up a first down in the ball game. That's all she wrote. Good night, Irene. Bengals offensive line was the reason ultimately that they lost the ball game. I'll agree with HD there. You can't, and this show's going to be a little shorter. I'm going to do about 45 minutes. Just got a couple things to do before the kids get home. The offensive line for the Bengals, when push came to shove, it didn't show up. It didn't show up. They're going to need to invest a lot of money in that offensive line. Or not a lot of money, but they're going to need to invest significant amount, right? A nice little chunk, right? They don't have to put it all into it, but a nice chunk of money to shore up that offensive line. When push came to shove, a superior pass rush just bowled them over, right? You could only get away with putting a Band-Aid on it for so long, right? Only a matter of time before you just got to call it what it is. So looking at how the Bengals at the end of the ball game, when they needed the pass rush the most, when they needed the pass blocking the most, when they needed their linemen the most, they weren't there. They weren't there. They were there, but they were getting blown back a few yards into the backfield and giving up sacks. To wrap up the Super Bowl and honestly the season, good for the Rams. I don't hate the Rams, but just something needs to be done with the consistency of how the game is called. It's just there's been too many questions. There's been more than just me. It's not just some disgruntled fan bitching. You know what I mean? Like there's more people complaining and pointing out some of the flaws in the officiating. It's more than just me. So going into next season, to close out 2021, just would like to see more, or excuse me, more consistent officiating. Just more consistent officiating, because I felt like the game was good enough for it to end with the Rams just bowling them over and getting in, or not, to end right there with the players deciding the game. Whatever happened right there, fucking happened right there, and nobody else is gonna decide it but the players, right? When, like I said, when you have a play like that T. Higgins play, there's just you can't help but think these are makeup calls. Makeup calls in the fucking Super Bowl. More consistent officiating to end 2021. But going to the Bears and shifting over into next season, what I feel like they should do, and I'm gonna beat this drum to death. I'm gonna beat a hole in this damn thing. Offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. Right? You're gonna need playmakers. I know you can go ahead and spread money around to go ahead and fill whatever needs you have to go ahead and fill, right? Who you're going to get and how you're going to get them, that's the question, right? Do you go heavy in free agency on a playmaker, right? And you kind of get a solid offensive lineman, not a guy that's going to demand a lot of money. And then you kind of, like I said, then you kind of just spread the money out a little bit and try to fill every hole you need. Or do you go get a big time playmaker? Do you pay a guy? Do you pay an offensive lineman? We were all talking about Jensen from the Bucks this morning. That would be amazing, right? I mean, a million things need to happen before then in order for that to happen, to come to pass. But staying true to what the Bears were talking about, what Brian Poles, Matt Eberflus, how they describe their football team, how they describe their philosophy of how they want their football team to operate. It starts up front, and I can't say it enough. It starts up front. Darnell Mooney may not be my guy's name from CeeDee Lamb, right? He might not be CeeDee Lamb, but you have something in him. You have a connection with the quarterback in him. You could put another guy in there, and I would say a veteran. I would like a veteran, although, if you find a guy in the draft that you really like that can add to the roster, by all means, do it. But you could find a veteran guy out there that will help Justin Fields, and you could keep that connection with Darnell Mooney. They could build their own connection themselves. And you can have somebody you could trust. I mean, you'll have to find a guy that buys in to the system and wants to play with a Justin Fields, but you'll have a veteran that you could trust. I like that more than going in with a Mooney who's a veteran now. I mean, I consider Darnell Mooney's a vet. Mooney and pretty much a young crop of receivers, right? Find a vet you could trust. Find a guy you could trust that's not just average, right? I'm not saying to go get a Godwin or a Goodwin. Go get a Godwin. Go get a Godwin, not a good one. Get a Godwin, not a good one. Not those guys, but a Godwin, right? If he's available. That knee injury, yeah, it's rough. But you took a shot on Allen Robinson, right? You took a shot on a guy like that. Allen Robinson could have worked out. Like the way the mismanagement of the Bears in the pass regime, I curse every time I think about it, because it's like you could have done so many things differently that would have benefited the team regardless of its deficiencies. And Regardless, right? Building the team towards that, finding a receiver in free agency, I think is the way I would go. That's just me. Adding possibly another offensive lineman in free agency? Yes, definitely. Will you get a Jansen? I don't know. I'm not sure. But could you get a solid offensive lineman that can help your team, that understands what your team wants to do? Yeah, of course. You could find that guy. There's guys that fit the mold. But you have to add in the draft as well. And that's why I say the first pick, I'm looking at O-line, the first pick. If your guys aren't there, so be it. But if they are there, take them. Take them. And you should have a few guys. We're talking about creating competition. We didn't have a lot of that the past 4 years. We didn't have a lot of guys that, could fill a void if a starter went down, and potentially, have potential starter in him. No development. Start developing the offensive line. Start there. Start there. You get a strong offensive line. You start moving guys around up front. Good things will happen to this football team. I guarantee it. Vice versa on the defensive line. Flip side, defensive line, same thing. Build there and get nasty from. They already have two ends. I mean, it looks like they're going to keep Khalil Mack. I mean, they're going to keep everybody, not just Khalil Mack. They're going to keep everybody. I know I was talking about maybe Khalil goes. I mean, that's somebody that we need draft capital. And it's not because Khalil sucks, because I love Khalil Mack. But it's just like, man, we were left with such a bare covered. And as far as draft capital is concerned, you're just frustrated. You got your Justin Fields. I'm happy about that. But the collective, right? That whole collective of what that shit show did last go around and what they left us. It's just like, all right, we don't even know which guy for the Bears, we have an idea of who, there's probably a solid group of guys that you're like, all right, this guy's a baller. But just proper assessment. You couldn't even give them proper assessment after last year's shit show. I want them to build up front so you have so it goes to where your starters are very solid and you have reliable backups that are competent enough to get the job done if a starter goes down for a significant amount of time. It just seemed like the Bears were just the talent was just not there. You know what I mean? And they got some talent now, they got Borum, they got Jenkins. Those guys are going to need to grow. They have Daniels. They had Whitehair, who I think Whitehair, and I was talking to Robert Smith about this. Robert Smith from Windy City Gridiron. Whitehair, who I think benefits from a new center, who benefits from a new center. It's going to be a journey. Do they strike lightning? Do they hit? Does the Bear do the Bears take off right away? Do they strike gold and all of a sudden they're firing on all cylinders and they run off a string of wins? I could see that. But if we're looking to compare them to somebody like the Bengals, right? You got to take a look back at what Zach Taylor had after he inherited the Bengals from Marvin Lewis after the 2018 season. Bengals are 2-14. You know what I mean? I don't think the Bears are that bad. I think they have a lot of they have talent. They have talent, and if they re-sign a couple guys that obviously have contracts up, I think they could retain some of that talent that they have had, right? But it's a journey. 2-14 that first year. Second year, 4-11-1. And then you get the 2021 10-7 Super Bowl appearance. They lose to the Rams 23-20 yesterday. It's a journey. Like I think that if they just embrace and stay headstrong to that building of the offensive line, getting nasty up front, that truth, if they stay with that, because that's the truth, you have to build up front. You got to get nasty because we were fucking soft for too long. They stay true to that. I think we in a year or two, maybe they surprise us and they get off to a great start next season. Maybe they could do something, make some noise, put some fire back into the hearts of Bears fans. Put some hope back into the hearts of Bears fans. It's been a rough go of it these past couple years. Enjoyable Super Bowl. Wish it wouldn't have ended in the referee's hands. Is the NFL fixed? I don't know. It sure is hard to say no after seeing something like that. There's a couple other Super Bowls that are questionable. I know Seattle fans to this day will come at you if you tell them that Super Bowl for the Steelers was clean. And it's you sound crazy when you say it, but you look at all the you look at the money, right? Where is the money? Follow the money. Talk about that, plenty. Where's the money? Follow the money. That's where the problem is, right? Look at the money. Like, look at LA. Look at that shit, right? Look at what they did. They marched The Rock out, wrapped him up in burgundy, and had him talking on the field. Just for what? Like I don't know if it was marketing or pay. They're willing to do anything. They were throwing money everywhere. There was big time money at that game. There's big time money all week in LA. You don't think they want that party to continue? You don't think with all the money they've been spending, they need some of that money back? LA fought hard. The Bengals fought hard. Just did not want to see it put in the refs' hands at the end. Guys, that's going to wrap things up for me. Hopefully the Bears take heed to what happened there at the end. They see exactly how that ended for the Bengals. If you go cheap and not necessarily go cheap, but if you don't put time and effort and if you don't develop your players and you try to just patchwork it, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Especially if you have a lesser talent coming in to fill the void. So offensive line for the Chicago Bears. Don't allow Justin Fields to get his sacked as much as Joe Burrow has. Just that's all I got, man. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was okay up until that BS end. Whatever. Let's hope the Bears have a good draft. Let's get excited for free agency and the combine. I'm looking forward to 2022. Justin Fields, I'm looking for that jump forward, the jump that we didn't get to see this year. We saw the flashes, but you want to see him in something consistent. You want to see him in something that he is willing to buy into. And I think he's going to buy into what Eberflus, Getsy, Alan Williams, and Richard Hightower are buying. And it's a team thing, right? The entire team needs to buy into it. Protect your quarterback. Protect your quarterback at all times. Don't let him get beat up like smoking Joe Burrow. Guys, I'm Ivan Vargas. That's going to wrap things up for me. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you like Another Bear Show on YouTube. Just go ahead and search Another Bear Show. Subscribe to the page. Also, download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps from. We got What's Up Cuz tonight, I believe. I got to double check with Jason. So check that out at 6. I'll be on with those guys. Like I said, I got to double check. I'm quite sure we're on for tonight. But until Wednesday, if we don't go on, I'll see you on Wednesday. Until then, guys, I'm Ivan Vargas. Peace.